Hey guys, welcome back to the Portakeeper YouTube channel. My name is Barrett, and today we have something very fun in front of us. So my friend Scott, he's a Sanremo dealer, and he is allowing me to borrow this Sanremo YOU. So you can see I have this black Sanremo YOU here. I've been using it for about a month now, pretty much every day, and just wanted to give my overall thoughts on this machine. Now, I do find this as a very innovative machine. We're gonna kind of go into the nerdy stuff a little bit just because it is quite a bit different than some of your more classic styling machines. So think of it somewhat as a decent without quite all the decent capabilities. So it's just something quite a bit different that you don't see on a whole lot of machines out there. We're just going to take a quick overview of the machine, but before we get going, I wanted to just go over some of the stats on this machine because this machine does offer some very unique things, has a very high build quality, and they're doing things a little bit different than what's been done for probably the last 20 or so years with like the PID controls. So let's take a look at it a little bit closer. So I did pencil down some notes. We're going to take a more up close look at this machine. I want to go through some of the under the hood things just so that you understand what you're getting with this machine. Now, it uses stainless steel boilers, and it has stainless steel steam boiler and a pre-boiler. So that's something that's really interesting. The steam boiler is about 1 liter. The pre-boiler is about half a liter. So the steam boiler itself is like 1,500, 1,600 watts, and the pre-boiler is 500 watts. Now, on a lot of these type machines, you have some sort of a thermosiphon. So if you look in the back of an E61, there's usually 2 connections so that it can thermosiphon through that group head to preheat that group head. So unlike maybe some of your E61 machines, this actually has a 300 watt heating element built into this group head. So you don't really need that saturated group. It has a group head that is heated, kind of like the Rocket. You'll see that on the Rocket boxers, and that's a really nice thing to have. So this thing, it is all copper lines. There's no plastic in it at all. I say there's no plastic in it. I mean, you're gonna have plastic on like the bezels and stuff, but we're talking things that get hot and touch water or coffee. There's no plastic in this machine. So everything on this is pretty much electrically actuated. So there is no valve in here. It is electrically actuated. So when we slide this over to the side, it's actually a controller sending a signal into the machine. Same thing with the hot water. This isn't a valve, it's electrically actuated. In the steam. Now, the one thing that it works very well for me, but I was a little bit surprised by, I'm used to having a steam either joystick or a knob where you don't have to go full force. This is more or less on or off, which I was kind of concerned with at first, but as I used it, I found this to be just a very controllable steam arm. It's very thick, no burn, just cold to the touch after we just ran some steam through it. So pretty cool there. If you're wanting to service this machine, it uses all sorts of ball valves, which I find really handy going through lots of different machines and testing lots of different machines. A lot of times there's like a fitting that you need to take free to drain out boilers. This has some ball valves on the inside. So that's kind of some under the hood type things. Now this does have a DC motor, and I just showed you the controller for it a bit ago, but when you have a DC motor, number one, it's going to be pretty quiet. You're not going to get the vibratory or the AC hum. And then you're also able to control the speed on it. So that's something that's really kind of going to be game changer as some of these machines evolve, having DC style pumps. It's not like this is the first machine to have that. And we'll show you a little bit closer later, but you can see how many bars and some of the flow on the top. And as we go lower and lower and lower, it's going to flow less and less and less. So having that DC motor really does do quite a bit. So since this is a pretty tech savvy machine, there are quite a bit of electronics, and electronics don't like the wet. We're going to show you a little bit later on how they've designed this machine to keep those electronics safe from maybe some moisture buildup inside the machine or some sort of a leaky fitting in the future. And they've done a really kind of interesting design job with the electronics. Now, everything on a traditional machine, if you have like a PID, you're going to see a lot of stuff that has like thermocouples. And what that's doing is that's looking for a resistance in the thermocouple itself, and then that will go back to a PID controller, and based on the readout, it tells approximately the temperature, and that's how the machine is controlled. So what I've never seen in a machine before, and coming from the engineering industry, a lot of the instrumentation, like in oil refineries and some of these process plants, they actually use 4 to 20 amp transmitters. So in this machine, instead of using something like a thermocouple, they're actually using a Danfoss 4 to 20 milliamp pressure transducer on the pump and the steam boiler. There are thermistors for the steam and pre-boiler, but they are using actual RTDs, and it actually has a signal back to a data logger. So that's something that's kind of not been seen, in my opinion, in the espresso machine industry. I'm not sure if machines like Decent have that. I'm not as well read on the Decent stuff, but I just found that extremely interesting with this machine, because they're taking more of like the simplicity of some of these machines, they're making it to a little bit of a next level and making it more of like a process unit. So pretty cool. So we've done all this talking, but doesn't make good coffee. And we're gonna pull some shots, we're gonna steam, and we're gonna play with this machine a little bit. It does have this touch interface. You can see on the top if we touch it, we'll get a closer look at it, but you can change all your different profiles. You can set up profiles. We're not really going into that. We're talking about the machine and the construction and what you're getting today. Some things that I like and don't like about the machine, and probably some things that no one else has really shown on YouTube so far. So we're gonna get ready to pull some shots, and then we'll go into some of the under the hood type stuff. I want to show you the electronics. I want to show a couple things that I didn't care for on the machine, but let's get it set up for a couple shots. So before we pull a shot, let's just take a look at the interface on this machine. I mean, that's going to be one of the things that draws people to this machine, is the interface. So I just pulled a shot to dial this in. You can see the last graph. I'm not doing anything crazy with it, but you can save this profile. You can see the 1, 2, and 3. These are pre-programmed profiles that come from Sanremo. It's kind of like your single and double shot, more or less. They don't really provide you with very good profiles, but you can make your own. So that's really not that big of a deal. You got the little back button. You can see here we got the P. That's just to purge your group head, so you can pull this out. You can purge some of the coffee grounds out of your group head, and it'll just automatically purge. If you have it on the M mode, that's the manual mode, and that really just, however far you move the paddle, you'll see it ramp up in pressure. So overall, it's pretty simple machine. You can see over here, we have the temperatures and pressures. So really interesting and easy to use. You can set the standby timer, steam boiler on-off switch. So if you don't want steam at all, you're just pulling black shots, you can turn all that off. Does just a lot of just really simple things. Turn your lights on and off, so that's kind of nice. You can set your outputs for your custom profile. So here you see what I was talking about. This is kind of like your ristretto. It's going to be your lowest volume. This is going to be probably your typical large output or a custom profile that you can set up. And this would be, it actually looks quite low, but it says espresso ×2, so they must have that set a little bit weird. You do have some factory information that you're not allowed to get into, followed by any alarms. If you have any issues with your machine, it's going to tell you here. You can just click that home screen, it'll bring you right back. I really don't find myself doing a whole lot with the screen. I like looking at the graph, and I like looking at the pressure as we pull the shot. And when we pull a shot here in a minute, you will see the pressure ramp up and the timer and everything, and it's really nice to have that user feedback without it being just loads of graphs and overly complex. So I'm going to prep a shot, and we're going to do a latte. Not a big latte guy, but we're going to do some steam and pull a shot so you can see how this machine works. Okay, so I went ahead and prepped a portafilter. You can see here, we just got it ready. You don't need to learn how to make coffee. We're not doing that today. We're talking about this machine. So I'm going to put my Akaya scale on, and this is probably one of my biggest complaints about this machine. So this is as far back as I can really put this Akai scale, and I'll show you a little bit closer in a bit. But this three-way valve actually kind of just dumps on the back of the scale if you push it too far back. So you'll want to make sure that it's at least resting nice and level. But this is pretty much all the way back on this latte cup. So you can see it's pretty far forward and just kind of not ideal. I wish they would have made that drip tray maybe an inch deeper. So we're going to just pull this shot. I want to show how you can, like if you wanted to do a really slow pre-infusion, let's say you want to do a bar. It's really easy to set it at a bar, sometimes 2 bars. I've had some really fantastic shots where I've just let it go a little bit fine at about 2 bars, let it pre-wet that puck without putting a ton of pressure on it, and then when it starts coming out, we can ramp up the pressure. It's coming out a little bit fast, but you get the idea of you have complete control from 1 to 9 bars at the flip of this paddle. So I'm going to turn this off. I wish it was a little bit more rich and syrupy, but we're going to do some steam, and let me grab the milk. So the steam, as I mentioned before, has just loads of power, but it's pretty much on off. So give it a quick purge if you want to get any of the moisture out of the line. It's really a dry steam, so you don't need to do that very much. And we're just going to do a quick steam. Don't laugh too hard at my steaming. I don't do a whole lot of milk, unfortunately. And it makes pretty quick work of it. I probably could have done it faster if I had a little bit more skill. And I like to do a quick purge. There we go, nice little heart. And really easy to use. You saw how fast and easy it was. You saw how you had just this complete control over the shot. And we went a little bit crazy with it. You can see how we did a really long pre-infusion, and then I kind of just slammed it all the way as 9 bars and then tapered it back off. Not really what you would want to do, but you do have that ability. You can make your own lever type profile. You can do all sorts of just really cool stuff. Let's take a quick taste. Super rich and amazing. So that's really just the overview of this machine. I do want to show you a couple really interesting features that I've not seen on other machines. So let's just take a quick look at those. Okay, so we're just gonna get this over with. We're gonna rip the Band-Aid off and probably make a few people mad, but we're gonna go over the one thing on this machine that I just really found quite lacking, and that's the drip tray itself. Now, I feel like the drip tray, it does look elegant. I feel like they've put a lot of ideas into styling in the machine. This is actually the frame of the machine, and this is a drip tray. It comes out. It's not very deep, so if you don't have it plumbed in, which this is a plumbable drip tray, and it's kind of a unique design the way that they did it. But if you don't have this plumbed in, it does fill up relatively quickly, especially if you're in like some sort of a shop. But we have a just pretty standard latte cup. It's not very big at all. And you can see when I use a bottomless portafilter, I mean, I'll just have it touch the back. That's touching the back of this shroud for the 3-way valve. There's just almost not enough room. Now, this machine does come standard with a 2-spout portafilter, but if you're going to use this at home, I would imagine most people are probably going to run bottomless with maybe something like an Akai scale, which is what I did. So I grabbed my Akai scale, and I'm going to line it up with that 3-way valve. And this is as far back as it can go. It's almost hanging off the front. And when I put my cup on and make sure that it's not touching, I mean, it's almost covering up the numbers on my scale, which I find just very frustrating that they had a machine of this caliber. They invested all this time and thought into this machine, and they didn't make the drip tray probably 3/4 inch deeper. So I understand the design requirements. It does take up a full countertop depth, but that is probably my one main complaint about this machine, which is rather unfortunate. Really hard to say that, but I mean, that is one thing that just kind of drove me crazy as I use this machine. Also, when you actuate the valve, it pretty much dumps all over your charge port on your scale, depending on what brand of scale you have. If your charge port's on the back, it's going to dump water. So kind of found that a little bit unfortunate. Now this drip tray, it is a unique design. Take it apart. It does have this nice big grate. They do kind of have these small magnets. It doesn't do the best job of holding it in place, but you can see if you do plumb it in, it has a bung on the back. And I feel like it is a fairly elegant design. A lot of them, they go through the middle of the drip tray, and it's not really ideal. So I feel like the way they did the drip tray in this, in terms of the plumbing, is pretty nice. But if you don't have it plumbed, I think you're going to find it fills up rather quickly. So taking a look at the styling on this machine, I feel like they put a lot of thought into the styling behind it. And you can see you can put your hand through the drip tray and it goes to the back. There's actually a power switch right here. So this is your power switch. You don't have a big toggle switch in the front or a big one on the side like on some machines that's hidden up underneath. You can kind of see a little bit of the red glow when it's turned on. It does have the angles on the sides, which I think you either love it or hate it. This is the all black version with some of the chrome trim pieces. The cup warmer does work quite well in the front, but in the back it does have this water reservoir area, and it obviously does not get very warm there. So if you want to keep a few of your most used cups, keep them in the front row and just pull them forward as you use them. Now, the water reservoir I find quite interesting. It doesn't look very big at all, but it's actually pretty ample size, and I don't have the stats on it off the top of my head at the moment. It's pretty easy to fill. You can more or less set it there, but you will have to brace it. It will fall over on its own, which I find a little bit annoying. But the reason why they have this slope in the back is this is actually double contained. So if you were to dump a bunch of water in there, it's going to run down in your drip tray. It's not going to run all over the electronics. It's not going to fill up inside the machine. It's not going to come out on your counter. It's actually completely self-contained. So put that back in. Nice and elegant, I feel. The cup rack is removable, if you were wondering. Some machines nowadays are starting to make them where they do not come off, but pretty nice looking cup rack. Let's take a look at it from behind. Okay, so here's a quick look at the back of the machine. It's really just kind of understated. You do have this raised Sanremo badge, which does look pretty sharp, but it's not really this grandiose looking machine. It's pretty minimalistic with this. It's thick metal, but it's just very minimalistic looking from the back, and it slopes back. If you look down low, this is where you can connect your drain line, so it's a pretty easy connection. If you wanted to route your power cord out the side, for example, you could also do that really easily. If you needed to do firmware updates, there's a little USB on the side. I'm not really sure how to do that. If you need to know how to do that, Sanremo dealers, they do have information on some of the firmware updates. But overall, it seems like a pretty easy machine to service and set up. Now there is something really cool that I wanted to show you real quick. So servicing any of the electronics in this machine is really easy. I already removed the screw on this side, and this one is mostly loosened as well. So I'm going to take it free. You can see they've completely designed all the electronics to fit into their own tray. And this is the water tank. So above this, it has a self-contained secondary reservoir that actually goes down into the drip tray. So there's really no way that these electronics can get wet. Has your main control board, your power circuitry, and a solid state relay. So quite easy to work on. I doubt you'll need to get in here that often, but if you did, it's super easy to get into. So something that I have not really seen that I found was a really interesting design idea for this machine. So this about wraps up our Sanremo YOU overview. If you could hit like and subscribe below, that really helps us out. We don't do a whole lot of videos, so that really helps our channel continue to grow so that I can show you cool stuff like this and take an interesting perspective on it. I also want to thank my friend Scott. He's a Sanremo dealer, and he allowed me to borrow this machine for about a month and to do a review and a video on it. So thank you, Scott, for doing that. I'll drop his information below if you're looking for a Sanremo. What I really kind of wanted to show that I don't think I've seen anywhere else, And this is just kind of like my final take, is just the engineering design behind this. So my background is in electrical engineering for power distribution and controls, and seeing some of the control systems are kind of a watered down process plant type control that you don't normally see in an espresso machine. So the fact that they're taking those types of controls and investing and making a machine that's slightly more unique, and it's just more unique than what's been out there for quite some time, I really enjoyed using. So if you have any questions about Sanremo, I'll try to answer them. You can drop a comment below. Otherwise, reach out to a Sanremo dealer and they should be able to take care of you. But for now, thanks for watching, and please check out some of my other channels. We try to have some really interesting, cool content. Have a good one.